Hey, welcome back, everybody. It is Roger Godwin with the Out of the Box podcast. Glad you guys are here to join us today. I am so excited that I get to introduce to you to my friend Leslie Corbley. Got to meet her about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, at an event for real estate investors, and she was getting ready to go through law school. And she and her husband Tim just rock stars, and just really enjoyed them. And she is now officially graduated. She is a partner in a law firm, and we have a really good connection because we were both homeschooled, and we're not socially inept. It's amazing, right? So, anyways, I'm going to introduce you guys to my friend, Miss Leslie Corbley.
Hello.
Hey, Leslie.
Hi there.
How are you?
I'm doing good.
Awesome.
Good. Yeah.
So we got to get together yesterday, and we had just a great time talking, and we haven't really gotten to know each other. And yesterday, we just chit chat, have a great time, and I'm just so excited that we got reconnected. And we got reconnected because you're doing a cool program that you're building out for helping people to have some financial literacy. So financial foundations, I believe is what you said it's called.
Yes.
So I'm really excited for you to tell some people about it. And we'll just kind of roll with the punches.
Okay.
Do what we do.
Well.
So tell me the vision, the dream.
The dream, man. Yeah, we're about really hoping to get into beta testing here probably in the next week or two.
Awesome.
That's really the goal. Really wanting to lay it out to do some testing and get some data before it goes out ultimately to the consumers. But long story short, financial literacy is a little bit of a problem. My practice primarily focuses just a little about me. So I primarily focus my practice on consumer debtor bankruptcy, but I also handle estate planning, probates, other generally financial matters that you would be looking at.
Okay.
But I interned with a individual named Chuck Moss, who's practiced in Oklahoma City metro area since 1960. And so he needed
50 years ago.
Yeah. He's 84. So he's been going at it a long time. Has no plans of retiring, but
Most
he
needed. Don't. They just kind of keep going.
Yeah, it's like a die at your desk kind of job. Yeah. Especially when you're out like on your own, sort of like that. Solo practitioners are definitely known for wanting to practice longer than, when you're at a bigger firm, it's just a different environment. But he needed someone really to hand his practice over to, and he didn't have his kids didn't go to law school. There was none of that typical sort of someone that you would typically kind of hand your practice off to. Right. And so he interviewed a bunch of people. He hired me, which obviously I'm happy with that. There is some initiative built there, but
there is. Self-motivated people.
And so he hired me back in 2018, and I trained a lot in law school. So I worked that last year of law school an awful lot to make sure I could handle cases from start to finish when I passed the bar.
Right on.
And so that was really the goal, and we met that goal and everything. But
Did you pass the bar the first time?
I did. Thank God. One time taking it. I really, really hope to never do that again.
I am one and done, people.
It's not a good experience. But he hired me, he trained me and everything, and obviously we talk a lot. We're partners, and especially since working with him and working with clients now for a couple of years, and just our conversations together, it's pretty clear to me that there's a huge market for just basic financial literacy that doesn't just cover knowledge. There's plenty. If you Google how to use your credit, you'll get plenty of good answers. If you Google what, lending practices or interest rates, you can get a lot of information on that. But there's a lot of people, it seems like, who either there's a disconnect between that information and putting into practice best practices, or they simply don't know what information to look for at all. So Google's great, but if you don't know what you're looking for, or you have no idea how to look for it, it's like being drowned almost. Like there's a ton of information, but it's useless for you.
Right. So if you don't know what you're specifically looking for, I'm looking for this answer. And sometimes if you speak the whole sentence into Google, they're like, "You're stupid."
Exactly.
What is this question?
Yeah, and so
I'm
it's
trying
really
to figure out some stuff.
Especially since Google, it's all based on algorithms. So what will pop up when you're looking for, if you start typing a question, I type it into Google on my phone, it could look differently than someone else typing it into Google. At least based on location is my understanding. So Again, I'm not a Google Analytics expert or anything,
I've heard
but
that though.
the algorithms
The rumors
also
should be true.
Exactly. Hopefully, there's some truth there.
Yeah.
But the Financial Foundations course is really designed as a non-legal service that my clients can utilize either after bankruptcy to really take advantage of that fresh start.
Mhm.
Because I don't know if lay people know this, but when you file bankruptcy, at the end you get a discharge, which is great because that absolves all of those debts. So you don't have to pay the vast majority of the debts you incurred,
Right.
which is the whole point of the bankruptcy code, which then gives you a fresh start.
Right.
And so being able to build that financial foundation right after getting out of crushing debt is really designed for them to then have this stability in their life that they can build on top of, so they hopefully never have to come back to my office or someone else's office, or end up in a situation where they've absolved their debt and then per the bankruptcy code they can't file again for 8 years. At least they can't file a Chapter 7 again for 8 years.
Gotcha.
Which then means if you get back into debt, you're in a little bit of a bind right there. And it's not going to be as easy to get out as it was the first time. So the course is designed to not just tackle, again, not just the head knowledge, but to really help. It's more to guide them through to a point where they're financially independent. Not that they aren't already, but financially independent in the sense that they have a stable foundation to build on.
Right.
And so it will do a lot of mindset work too. It will go through. I'll be having them take the Big 5 personality test. It's like the
right.
First,
yeah. So explain that a little bit. So why would you do the personality test to even start with? So let's talk about the basics on that. So.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to edit this part out, but you can just look at me.
Mm-hmm.
You keep looking to the camera.
Okay.
Don't worry about looking at the camera. So tell me a little bit about why the upfront, like the personality, not personality test, but like what is it called?
Big 5. It's called the Big 5.
Okay, Big 5. So tell me why the Big 5 is important.
So I use the Big 5 because unlike other personality tests, it measures you on 5 dimensions, and they're called 5 traits.
Okay.
And then it puts, when you get your results back, it shows you where you are on the continuum of those traits. So most people aren't at the extreme of each. And the ones I talk about the most in the course are going to be neuroticism and conscientiousness, because those correlate the most with his spending habits. So since we're doing finances, we primarily are going to be dealing with spending habits. And there's 3 other traits. I'll be having them go through sort of all of those traits and how they interrelate. So for instance, being high in conscientiousness correlates with being good with money and not tending to get in debt. However, that doesn't like a safe haven that stops you from getting into debt.
Right.
So let's say you're really high in conscientiousness, but you're in a lot of bad debt. That can cause a situation for someone where they're acting out something different than their core.
Right.
Like.
Or you're going to spend a lot of money and feel guilty.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. So it causes what's called cognitive dissonance, where there's a disconnect between how you identify and the way you're behaving, which obviously that causes emotional
distress.
Yeah, distress and just problems in general.
Right.
And so the point of the course, starting with your personality, is so that you understand yourself before you move forward trying to address your problems. Because if you just try to address your problems without really understanding where you're coming from, where your point of view really is, then you might end up in a situation where you're sort of throwing something at the wall and hoping it sticks.
Right.
So we're trying to avoid that by centering your problems on you, so that then you can address your own issues. And for some people, that's going to be, maybe cognitive dissonance. And for others, it might be that they simply don't know a lot about finances, and then they got into a bad deal on a car, or a bad deal on a car and a home. And then when you default on debt, if you don't have the means to come up with those payments quickly, you can get in under your head on bad interest rates really quickly.
Yeah.
So for some people, it's a knowledge issue. For some, it's, patterns of spending, so habits that they've developed over time. For others, it could be anything. So that's why we're really trying to design the program to where we're not just giving you some tips, some life advice tips. We're really saying, here's what we think is most important across several domains, 6 in particular. It's a 6-week course. And that way individuals and families are tasked with the responsibility of putting those into practice the way they see fit.
Gotcha.
So we can guide and help you get there, but ultimately it's up to those individuals and families to determine how they're going to reform those habits into healthy habits for their own financial stability.
Gotcha. Well, and I know that we talked about it yesterday, so I know we're going to help you with the beta test and some other people as well. So I'm really excited to see what it looks like. I'm doing a devotional right now, and I love it because it gives a verse, and then it gives a story that's applicable, and then it has a prayer involved, and then it has an action. So with the action, it's taking what did you learn today and actually applying it to do something. So having that challenge, I don't know what it looks like yet, but to have a challenge to actually do the paperwork. And you and I talked about this. We love to write stuff down. Yeah. Like, give me pen and paper. I'm all about it. And it's so funny because there's actual psychological benefits behind writing it down.
Yes, there is.
So I want you to tell, why do you want to do this?
Well, ultimately, I want to do it because I really see the practice of law as my profession. And that sounds like so typical for a lawyer, but I've wanted to be a lawyer since I was 12. So I really have aspired to that for, well over a decade at this point. And I really take the counselor and counselor law very seriously in the sense that I would prefer for people to never even have a problem where they have to be at my office. Right. I mean, really, I would. If I could run myself out of business, I'm confident I could go work in another field. So that's fine.
Well, and there's always people that are going to need things. But, for example, and I was talking to Christine about this the other day after we left with you. And people that have either, people hire attorneys because of hurt, because of pain. Yeah. And I learned that, I need to talk to an attorney and a CPA before I have pain, because I am not motivated by pain. I am motivated by pleasure and peace of mind. So if I talk to an attorney and I talk to a CPA before about decisions, I'm good. Right? So I call my buddy down in McAllister all the time. Brett, got a question. Can we do this? More importantly, can we not do this? Because there's not a stipulation in the law that says that we can't. I've called them with some real doozies, and it's been really awesome, especially being in the real estate world. I freaking love it. They're like, Roger, you call me with the weirdest questions. I have to look stuff up. I don't appreciate it.
But that's what lawyers are supposed to be for,
I know. Well, that's why I called.
You really are.
That's why I called you.
Supposed to be there to assist and to, in my view, I really see it as, especially in the bankruptcy context, people are coming to you at their lowest point. No one wants to say, I need to file bankruptcy. They just don't. And the reality is a lot of people could prevent it by really looking at their finances prior to it spiraling completely out of control. Some might even take the course and think, okay, I need to file because this will get me out of that debt faster and help me build a better foundation. Instead of, I know Dave Ramsey and others have certain tactics. I'm not trying to say those are not useful or anything like that, but this is definitely different in the sense that I've designed it to be scalable so that, and there's a really low buy-in. A lot of people, it's difficult when you want to, let's say you want to change your financial habits and you're thinking, okay, how do I do that? And again,
how do you do that?
Well, that's what the course is for. I can give out all the secrets, but again, there's tons of information on Google and you could really do a lot on your own. But the problem with that, especially for a lot of working people, professionals, people who are busy, is that you don't have the time or even the wherewithal to know exactly what's applicable to you. So if you have something already laid out that you can then, again, not follow a script, but actually say, okay, this is what's most relevant to me. And this is what would help my situation the most. Maybe it wouldn't help Bob down the road or Susan, but this is what I need to do to get where I need to go. Right. It can really it can be life-changing. I mean, I know it sounds maybe dramatic, but it really can change your life. Not having to worry about finances. I mean, the number one cause of divorce, or one of the number one causes of divorce, is financial problems.
And because you know a lot more than I do, so with that being said, I've heard a lot of different arguments with that, but that is absolutely the number one reason. But I've really heard that it's not financial problems in general, it's financial problems in the fact of disagreements on how the money is spent.
Yes. Yes, because at the end of the day, money is not just paper. I mean, it is paper at the end of the day,
It's very
but
emotional.
it's a resource, and it helps you value things.
Right.
And so when you and your spouse are valuing something different with money, that comes up in really tangible ways that creates really deep conflict. And when that goes unaddressed for too long, it's less about money as paper and more about the fact that you and your spouse are fundamentally valuing things differently, and that can create a lot of tension within a relationship. And when that goes too long unaddressed, we can just look at the divorce statistics and see that causes a lot of problems.
Right.
And so...
And divorce went really up during COVID because people are like, I don't like you.
And we'll also think about the number of job loss. COVID caused job loss. A lot of just issues surrounding finances are going to be extremely important. So now...
and considering that, I don't know what the number is, and you probably know more than I do, but in the fact of most Americans are one paycheck away from bankruptcy.
Yeah. And most, if you look at data, which I have, obviously being a bankruptcy attorney.
I'm such a nerd. I love data.
I love data too. It's great. It's amazing. But if you look at, well, at least this is obviously my professional opinion as an attorney, when you look at how long it takes people to actually take the step of filing, like you said, that action item of talking to an attorney, they could save themselves a lot of heartache, a lot of stress, a lot of pain that comes with the process. When you're in crushing debt, for instance, and it takes a lot of people 1 year to 2 years to say, okay, I have to contact an attorney and take care of this. And again, that's one of the reasons that I want this course to be available, because our firm will then not only have bankruptcy as a service, but say, our goal is to be very client focused firm. Mm-hmm. It's like, we're not just going to take care of you when you file and walk you through that bankruptcy process to your discharge. We're saying, look, if you want to go a step further, obviously this is voluntary, but if you want to go a step further and really dig into how do I ensure this never happens again, you can take this financial foundations course. And of course, for some of our clients, it's kind of cut and dry why they filed bankruptcy. They may not need that. Like, it could be a business deal gone bad. Divorce actually can push you into bankruptcy because of when you divorce and split up your debts and your assets. If you end up with kind of the raw end of the deal, or maybe you don't want to fight, maybe you're willing to sort of let things go, so to speak. Or again, just divorce can push clients into bankruptcy. And again, there's just other reasons. I mean, there's so many reasons people end up filing. Medical debt, maybe one of them. But other reasons do involve, a lot of consumers aren't really aware of the dangers associated with credit cards, or how to ensure that you don't end up in a really bad deal. Because again, once those interest rates start hitting you, they can hit you really hard.
Well, like the buy here, pay here stuff.
Payday loans.
They did a study on a buy here, pay here car lot. They followed 3 cars in a 2-year period. Those cars that weren't even worth $6,000 racked up more than $100,000 in debt each.
Yep.
Each one of those cars.
And that's what I mean. It's sort of like,
oh my God.
So part of the course will be going through some of those, like, to really lay out. It's a problem when you're looking, like, laying out structurally how some of these lending practices work that are,
like 101, like people say, I'm a pretty smart guy. And I've been in the real estate world for a long time, and I've my wife and I, we've lived our lives the way we have, pretty much debt free. We had to do credit cards and stuff like that, trying to keep my business afloat. Yeah. And we almost declared bankruptcy. Yeah. And I was just like, I'm not going to do that. Like a lot of people say in their head, like, hey, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to push through. And then ultimately, most people probably do. Yeah. Or they just sit there and drown. So I was like, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to push through. I'm going to make the money that I need to. So I doubled down on my work and I got it done. But it was really hard on my family, just even everything leading up to that. It was like, I owe my family better than this. Yes. So, but what I was going to say is that a lot of people don't understand how finances really work in regards to interest. And if you're able to put, all right, here's what interest this does, this is what interest that does, and then this is how long it'll take you to pay it off. Is that worth buying? Exactly. Yeah, and that's scenarios and stuff. Yeah, and that's why we're gonna, like, one of the weeks is actually,
goal setting that's both short-term and long-term. So utilizing the SMART model, which I know is often associated with business, which I think is a shame because it could do wonders for so many, individuals and family budgets. Utilizing the SMART model shouldn't be something, in my opinion, that's just associated with business. There's absolutely no reason it needs
explain
to
the
be.
SMART model.
Yeah, so SMART, and I'm not always the best at off the top of my head remembering acronyms, so bear with me if I accidentally make a mistake. SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable are relevant and time bound.
Yes.
Right. Okay. I did it.
You did it. Good job.
Look at me.
Knuckles, come on.
I know. I did it.
Good job.
So, and really the goal from that is so specific means you're setting a specific goal, one that's simple, clear, logical, makes sense, easy to understand. You're not trying to overcomplicate it for yourself. And then what's the next one?
Measurable.
Measurable means that there's a metric. So you have to set some kind of a metric. And
I'm not going to make $50,000.
Exactly.
I'm going to do this, and this to make $50,000.
Yeah. So something to measure it, so that you can track your progress. So think about it. I mean, I lift weights. I used to do CrossFit.
Right.
I go to a gym that does, high intensity interval training. So when I was measuring my, counting reps or whatever. I mean, think of it as something akin to that. If you write down, okay, my goal is to lift, I want to back squat 250 pounds. And then if you start tracking, like measuring how many reps you're doing, in what order you're doing them, that can help you measure your progress towards that goal. And then when you retest, you can see, okay, did I get stronger or weaker?
Right. To build it
and it's those tests aren't designed just to make you feel bad if you fail. No, yeah. They're designed to also help you. Okay, what did I do wrong? How do I adjust that to get back up, hopefully to meet my goal? And so that's really what the measurable part is. And again, we're not going to impose a metric. The goal isn't to say you have to measure it using this. We'll give some guidelines that we think are really useful. But at the end of the day, everyone's goal in the program is going to look slightly different. Yeah. Therefore, their metric is likely going to be it's not going to mirror each other like 100%.
Right. Well, and it's interesting. So tomorrow I'm hosting a panel, and the reason why is because I was talking to the guy that runs the organization, and I told him people are tired of having concept. People need hardcore A to Z. How do I do this? Direction. And then whenever things happen, we need to adjust, and they need to have somebody to go to. And there's so many people that don't have that, and they're very intimidated. And just like for a lot of us, we're like, well, this is just how it's done. But we forget all the heartache and frustration and the discipline that we have to get to do the things that we do now. That we do it without even thinking.
Exactly. And that's why I really want the goal of it is for them to have like a map, so to speak, using the SMART model. So what they'll end with is a sort of map of their short-term and long-term goals. So the long-term goal, think of that as getting from like Oklahoma City to Pasadena, California. You're going to have to go through certain cities. So the short-term goals should be the cities you're passing through, and the long-term goal is the city you want to be in.
That's nice.
When you get
I like
there.
That. It's a good analogy.
So it's like a map. Again, and maps are, and that's why, again, I don't want people to think of this as, oh, I'm going to take a course, the lecturer is going to tell me what to do, and then I have to do that thing to get there. That's not really coaching, teaching, guiding. I'm not exactly sure how to classify that, but that's not really what this is about. This is more of a program designed for, if you want a stable financial foundation, that needs to be something you're building yourself. I can't build a foundation for someone else because that's a lifelong sort of journey and progress for you. But the good news is it's a journey. So let's say that you're someone who, again, life circumstances are going to come into play here where not everyone's starting at the same location. Not everyone's going from OKC to Pasadena.
Yeah.
And so that's why it really needs to be individualized, which is where I come in as sort of an expert in the field, so to speak.
Right.
And saying, look, here is what I think would be, you really need to look at these planes of dimensions, so to speak. So think of each week as a different dimension that you need to understand when you're making your map.
Okay.
And then the final thing that you're doing is you're making your map and you're saying, I'm here and I need to get there. And you might be wrong about some things along the way. But the good news is that's okay, because you can always come take the course back again, or you have the materials. Clients will be able to keep the materials from the course. So each week we'll have sort of a PowerPoint that will be voiced over. So it'll be like a video where you're watching.
Right.
So that way you have both the auditory and the visual, because everyone learns differently.
Yes.
So you have the auditory and the visual.
And the right.
Yeah, and then for that dimension or plane of existence, that week we'll say, okay, here is what you need for this. Here's we're talking. So the first week is, like I said, the big five. So we explain why we think that's important. We're not just going to tell you to take it and not really break down the reasons for that.
Right.
And then the worksheet will go through and have, questions for people to answer, for them to think through on their own time. And it's really designed to be something you do on the weekend that takes, 2 to 3 hours, because people are busy. You can't necessarily stop your life if you wanted to. Again, that's the short term versus long term. Ideally, you could stop your life for 6 weeks and go on a retreat, and you know what I mean? Like do something really intensive. That's ideal, but that's not something that's like
practical
universally accessible.
People,
so this is designed to be universally accessible to pretty much anyone that walks through my door for any reason, whether that's estate planning, probate, whether you just need a durable power of attorney, or whether you need a bankruptcy, whatever brought you there. Or also we do business planning, so contracts, partnership agreements.
Yeah, there's a ton of people that need to have that information.
Exactly.
Especially small business owners. They don't, and I was this way too. And until I got sued, I didn't think about getting this contract that solely protects me.
Mm-hmm.
I tell people I have an $18,500 contract because I got sued for $18,000, and the contract afterwards cost me $500.
But that's what I mean, and I think also what I think is also unique about the program I'm developing is that it's going to be this sort of financial foundations. You can think of it as a class program. We're going to call it financial foundations because that's really what we're trying to build here.
Absolutely, yeah.
We're not really just trying to market a class. It's really about a foundation for your overall life.
Right.
And one thing I think that is unique about it is that it's designed to meet the client where they're at. So if you're a small business owner, you don't have the time, you're trying to build your business. You don't have the time to go through and create this whole thing I created. That's why I created it. Now you don't have to. Mm-hmm. And it's the same for working class folks. Maybe you have 3, 4, 5 kids, or even 1 kid, and or child, somebody kind of a kid, but maybe you have a child, children, and you're busy. You and your spouse are working multiple jobs, and you're like, man, why are our finances a mess? Well, it might be a mess because you have 5 kids and you don't have the time on your own, to go through all of this, because that takes a lot of time. Mm-hmm. And that's, again, it's designed to where you're just being guided through it, and sort of the most relevant, important information that you should be thinking through is already right at your fingertips. Designed to where you can consume it. It's not going to be, collegiate level where you have to have a PhD to understand it. It's designed to be readable to pretty much anyone who has graduated high school, because again, this should be something that I think everyone should have available. I don't think it should be something that's just available to a certain class of people.
Like, are you guys breaking it down like pretty basic? So I learned this whenever I went to Kenya, and it's not the fact that people are illiterate or incompetent or anything like that. It has to do with context.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, so that's always, that's the reason why you got beta tests and all that stuff. And even whenever I went, it's like, man, I gotta catch myself on these things, because these are things, words, phrases that nobody outside the U.S. is gonna understand.
Yeah.
So I did pretty good on that, but it's really interesting to have that conscientious thought process, because I talked to somebody that knew better, the pastor that I went with, and it's like, does this make sense?
Exactly.
I know you're Americanized and everything. You've been here for 8 years, but does this make sense in regards to the fact of the Kenyan, mentality, mindset, guitar, all that? So it was very interesting writing that kind of stuff, because context matters.
Well, yeah, and that's why, again, beta testing is going to happen, because, yes, I'm an attorney. I have a lot of knowledge. I consider myself competent, or else I wouldn't be an attorney.
And you're homeschooled, so you're pretty, down to earth.
Yeah, but I think people do need to understand, I'm going to beta test it because I could get something wrong. No one's above reproach in that respect,
Absolutely.
And
it's not wrong, it's just, it's different.
Exactly. You need to say,
I failed. Like, did you really fail, or did you hit a road bump?
Exactly. It's like editing something. Everyone, no one, even, the best journalist doesn't write an article and then it goes through an editing process. That's what it's for. It's not because the journalist is stupid.
Right.
It's because the journalist is like everyone else and needs to edit their work.
Usually they tweet
yeah,
it.
yeah, and so like that's really important to understand that's why, you know, I don't want people, I hate that people come into my office and you can tell feel beaten down. You know, it's like, which life beats everyone down, but it's like, you know, okay, you had to file bankruptcy, like, so you messed up. You know, everyone in life messes up at some point. I don't see that as any flaw that's different than, you know, pretty much any other issue people face in life. You know, you face mental health concerns, you face medical problems, you face, I mean, just a whole host of concerns that sometimes feel outside of your wheelhouse or outside of your scope to deal with.
Well, and I mean, case in point, like my older brother, he just had quadruple bypass surgery.
Oh my gosh.
Doesn't have insurance.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know how many people file for that reason? It's one of the top reasons people file.
We got it for $39,000. So, because we pre-negotiated a cash price.
Which is, see, those are other things that that can be discussed. You know, what happens?
Tell me I can't, and I will. I'll do it.
You know, tell me what happens when you when something isn't covered by insurance. Exactly, like people should understand that there's other options available, or when to look for other options. Or, you know, for instance, one thing that was really important for me in law school that really was pretty much an essential expense was having a gym membership, because without that, it would have been too overwhelming for me personally to be able to deal with the stress and just what came with being in law school. And for other law students, it was different. You know, not everyone needed that, which is completely fine. Because not everyone's the same. So it's totally fine that they had a different outlet, you know, or everyone's just different. And so, you know, again, some people in law school had kids, and that, you know, their schedules look different than mine. And it's kind of the same with finances. You know, I think a lot of it comes down to people don't know. So unless you had like really good parents or like role models that could sort of teach you how to use money correctly and really teach you those good habits and instill them in you when you're young, a lot of people just don't have that. And so that's why I don't see it as a like failing in a sense. I mean, it is in the sense that it's not great, ignorant. It's not fun to go through, but in another sense, I want them to see it as a learning experience where this was not great, but it doesn't have to be that way. Right. If you're willing to work to change it. It doesn't. It just doesn't have to be that way. And I think a lot of people right now really do feel beaten down. I mean, especially with, you know, the year 2020 has probably made us all feel a little. At least it certainly has made me feel beaten down. You know, it's not fun being in I'm an extrovert. You know, I'm stuck in my house during lockdown. Like, that wasn't fun.
How did Tim do?
He was fine. He loved it because he got to work virtually and, you know, have his own weird schedule, and he loved it. I was sort of a mixed bag. You know, I liked some aspects of it, but I'm not.
We need people.
I know, I'm not a stay in my house kind of person. Yeah. So that didn't really like jive with how I operate.
I've never been that way. It's like, even whenever I was in college, it's like I could stay at home in the apartment and study, but I don't.
Exactly.
There's too many distractions at home. I need to go out and be with people. That's why I had study groups.
Exactly. I used to actually, what I would do in college a lot is I tended to study with close friends that weren't actually in my department or field of study. So we ended up where it's weird. I work better with someone around, even if it's not someone who's doing what I'm doing.
That's fair.
So like, for instance, one of the things I do, will be doing, is I'm going to be meeting with a friend every Monday evening to do some of my work that evening, because I know I'm more productive that way.
Fair.
So this is kind of like a little bit of a sneak peek preview of some of the like little tips or things that you can utilize when you're in this kind of a more looking at what makes you perform best. Right. So, you know, what makes me perform best is weirdly meeting on a Monday night with a friend. You know, that's not normal. But if that's what if that's what works, then why not embrace that? And so it's really designed to help individuals, households, families, whatnot go, hey, we don't have to do financial foundations or stability the precise way, you know, our neighbor down the street does it. That model works for him, but we're creating our own map.
And I love it. So, hey, Leslie, thank you so much for being on today. We talked about so much, and we're going to have a regular podcast show every single week, talking about, you know, some political stuff. I love politics. You love politics. Yeah. And just life in general. So it's just going to be a lot of fun.
Hopefully not too political, more maybe more philosophical, idea oriented.
So it just kind of all comes together.
Comes together in a big circle. I'm excited for that. Thanks for having me on. This has been good. Thanks for letting me pitch this new sort of adventure that our firm will be going into. It's a little different than a traditional legal service, but really bolsters a lot of what we do at the firm to help our clients.
And it's ultimately going to help people. That's the reason why I wanted you to come on, because I know this is going to help people, and that's the purpose behind it. That's the whole purpose behind this entire thing, is that if there's a way to help serve people and you got a message to share, that's what I want. So thank you for coming on and hanging out with me, and we're getting ready to go do a live video saying what's up. So thanks for coming.
Thank you.